Fever, 1793, Chapter 29. November 10th, 1793. The yellow fever will discourage the growth of great cities in our nation. Thomas Jefferson. Letter to Dr. Benjamin Rush, 1800. I dashed across the street without looking. Mother! I gathered her into my arms. She felt like a frail bird. We stood in silence, rocking and holding on to each other as if the rest of the world didn't matter, which was true. At last she pulled away from me with a sigh. I need to sit down, she said with a weak smile. Where are my manners, Matilda? This is my good friend, Mrs. Ludington. I curtsied out of habit. You've been with the Ludingtons the whole time? Nathaniel stepped forward. Good day, Mrs. Cook. It's a pleasure to see you survive the terrible pestilence. Why don't we go inside where you'll be more comfortable? What a good idea, Mother said. Nathaniel Benson, that's your name? Yes, ma'am, he said. Very respectful. Very smart. I waited for her to make a sharp-tongued remark, but she didn't. Mother could not walk unaided. Mrs. Ludington took one arm and I took the other to help her. Nathaniel walked ahead and opened the door for us. As we crossed the threshold, the company in the room fell silent. They were all as shocked by Mother's appearance as I was. The doctor at the chessboard stood in respect. His companion did the same. Then every man in the room rose to his feet to honor her. She paused for a moment. Thank you, gentlemen. Lucille! Eliza stood in the kitchen doorway, her hand covering her mouth. She took 2 steps and hugged Mother, tears flowing freely and without apology. Oh, my Lord, she said, wiping away the tears. Let's get you into the kitchen. I helped Mother sit at the kitchen table. Mrs. Ludington sat across from her. Eliza quickly poured coffee for all of us, then grabbed a serving tray. You stay here and catch up, she commanded me. I'll take care of the front room. If I get desperate, I'll use that printer of yours. Mother picked up her mug and her hand shaking. She sipped once, then set the mug down. It seemed too heavy for her to hold. There were so many questions, so much to say. Where should I start? Do you feel well? I asked. She nodded once. I require a nap these days, she said, with a hint of her old self. Imagine that, if you will. Your mother is still recovering, Mrs. Ludington exclaimed. The doctors say it's a miracle she survived it all. Bunkum, Mother said. Mrs. Ludington smiled. It's not bunkum, Lucille. She turned to me. Your mother joined us at the farm a few days after she sent you and your grandfather on. When she realized you were lost, she went wild. I was concerned, Mother said. We tried to keep her in bed. It was clear she was still quite ill. We sent messages to every town we could think of, but those who bothered to reply had not seen you. Lucille was frantic. She rose at midnight and took one of our horses to search for you herself. We found her 2 days later, near death at the side of the road. It took weeks for her to recover. I'm much better now, Mother said. Mrs. Ludington shook her head in disagreement. We came when we heard that President Washington was returning. Lucille said that would be a sign that your grandfather was waiting for. Where is the captain? I didn't see him when we came in. He died, I said flatly. Oh my, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Ludington said. Mother looked into the fire. I waited for her questions, but there were none. Did the doctor prescribe any treatments for you, Mother? I asked. Mrs. Ludington jumped in. She's supposed to live a life of leisure. Those were his exact words. The second attack nearly took her off to join your father. It damaged her heart. She arched her eyebrows. She won't be able to run the coffee house anymore. She should sell it and buy a small house near us. Mother pressed her lips together tightly. We'll talk about that later, I said quickly. Can I get you something to eat, Mrs. Ludington? Some stew? The farmer's wife stood up. I promised my husband I would return today, and it's a long ride back. I must go. I tried to convince her to stay the night, or at least take a meal with us, but she was determined. She bent over and hugged Mother briefly, said goodbye to me, and left. I peeked in the front room. A few customers had left. The rest were smoking their pipes and enjoying their conversation. Mother coughed. Is this your work or Eliza's? She asked. Mine, I said as I sat down across from her. I wanted to open again. Eliza wanted me to sell. The clock ticked. William is dead then? The clock ticked again. Then rang the hour. I waited until the noise stopped. Yes. In September. Oh, Maddie. Tears welled in Mother's eyes. Dear God, I was so worried. I couldn't find you no matter where I looked. I searched and searched until I felt ill again. I couldn't sleep. I was so afraid you were. I'm fine. Shh. Please don't cry. Everything is better now. I'm home. You're home. You don't have to worry anymore. I drew up a chair next to her, and she leaned against my shoulder. I cradled her head in my arms until her sobs quieted. "Tell me how you fared," she said. "I can remember so little. I've lost track of all the weeks." I told her everything, from the time the death cart dumped her at the front door to the first frost. I didn't give her all the details of the intruders or the night grandfather died. There would be time for that later when she felt stronger. Mother's eyes drifted back to the fire burning in the hearth. Her hands lay in her lap, withered and limp. I had never seen her hands stay still before. They'd always been busy with cleaning or needlework or polishing. I had a sudden sense of what was to come, and I blinked away the tears. "Help me upstairs, Maddie," Mother said. "I need to rest." That's the end of chapter 29.